Welcome to Candid Conversations with Danetha and Katie. We are so excited to invite you to join in on these conversations with us, where you as a woman in the accounting profession can realize your full potential. So today we're going to be talking about awakening your feminine power. Danetha, do you want to talk a little bit about what feminine power means to you?
Oh my gosh, Katie, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Feminine power to me has been a journey I've been on intentionally been on for the last few years. And I feel like every day I'm learning something new about what feminine power means to me. At today, in this moment, what it means to me is tapping into all aspects of my personality and giving myself permission to shine in however way feels most authentic to me in that moment.
So has this changed over time throughout your career and your journey on this planet?
Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. So the first time I would say I tapped into my feminine power was during the summer between 8th and ninth grade, where I completely went from being a tomboy to wanting to get my nails done, wanting to dress girly, wanting to wear makeup. And my mom always told me like, wow, you completely shifted that summer before freshman year of high school. And that was the first time I felt like I really started tapping into what I've considered femininity for myself. And then as I've, of course, gotten older, that has evolved to include some other elements of femininity, but certainly it's changed over the years. How about yourself?
Yeah, so I've always been kind of a mix between like girly and then also a little bit of a tomboy because I grew up on a horse farm, and so I was always outside playing, but like I loved fashion and that kind of stuff. But I felt like as I grew up, we're conditioned to think like, okay, if you're more like creative and you go down that path, then that means you likely aren't going to like earn as much money. So I was like, okay, I'm good at math and science, like I'm going to go down that route. But that somehow translated into me not being as creative and not being as in tune with sides of myself like movement and dance and being outgoing and doing yoga. So I was like super focused on being like very structured, and I feel like I turned off a piece of what makes me very strong as a female. And so over time, I feel like it's not been viewing just being a female as being into fashion and some of those like girlier things, but also more in tune with myself and what makes me unique as a female.
Yes. What was the catalyst for you where you realized by shutting off that creative side of you or the movement side was not allowing you to really tap into what made you strong?
So I was working at the Big Four, and I was just craving to reconnect to this more creative side of myself. I was super into journaling even from a young age. Like I wrote all these stories that I don't even know how I came up with them. But I was like, this seems strange that I can't incorporate being more creative and also in my passions in my everyday life, because work makes up most of your life. So once I finally went out on my own, that was something I was like, okay, this is like what I want to get back to. This is what I love. And I loved as soon as I started my own business and I got active on social media and started writing and sharing, I just really found myself enjoying that and being like, okay, you can incorporate all sides of yourself. It's not just what society thinks you should do. It's not just what you think is, I guess, like ideal for making money or in your career. It's everything about you that makes you you, and that's amazing.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Same thing for me. I realized once I started my business that there were so many aspects of being a financial professional that I had shut off in order to fit into what I thought was the perfect accountant. And in doing so, yes, same thing. I dimmed my lights as I've come to find out, and really was not as happy as I could have been by doing that. So I love how we've had a similar journey.
Yes, absolutely. So what would you say about, awakening your feminine power as a female in the accounting industry? What are some ways that you think, or I guess pieces of advice you would give someone to help them awaken their feminine power?
It's really interesting. I'm curious to hear your insight on this because I've never worked for a big four or any accounting firm. I've always been in private industry and then quickly started my own business. So for me, being able to awaken my feminine power has come from being an entrepreneur, which I know is not the path for everyone. So it depends upon who the person is. But for those that have that entrepreneurial itch, I would say that being an entrepreneur is a lifestyle and it's a journey. For me, it's been a journey to reconnect with my higher self and my inner self and really tap into those elements that make me feel alive and strong and help me find and discover and reveal what femininity means to me.
Yeah, totally get that. And I love that you bring up, yours was discovered through being an entrepreneur, because I think that there's so many paths where people can discover it. And while we both are entrepreneurs, I don't want to say that that's the only path, because I see people in their careers and they're not, on an entrepreneurial journey, but they are so strong in their personality and doing what they feel that, lights them up. But it's funny because I feel like I'm drawn to those people, but they don't have to be an entrepreneur by any means.
Absolutely. And it actually, as you're saying this, like I said, I've never worked in a large accounting firm before, but I remember doing some research around branding for accounting firms and just trying to figure out what the trends were within the accounting space for large CPA firms or medium-sized firms. And I came across this firm called Witham Smith CPA. And a couple of years ago, they released a music video, and it was members of their team that had worked with this creative agency, from what I gathered in my research, that they had hired an agency to help them put together this music video, which on the surface wasn't promoting any particular service. Like, they weren't saying, come work with us and get your taxes filed, or come work with us and get your audit done. It was literally just a team dancing around, having fun. And I feel like firms can do things like that, where on the surface, it may not seem to make business sense.
Uh-huh.
It may not be a direct correlation to sales or even to marketing, but allowing your team to tap into that creative aspect, do something that's fun outside the box, is such a great way to awaken that yearning to be creative as an accountant.
Totally. And I think sometimes we're in positions of our life, if we haven't become aware of this desire, or I don't want to say need, but I do want to say need, because you do need to tap into yourself. And if you haven't recognized that, I feel like it's hard to even start. So, because like if you're not aware of yourself being out of alignment, you've really tuned off what's going on the inside. Because if we want something on the inside, in my personal experience, and we're doing something externally and those don't match, it's super uncomfortable. So we have to shut off, one or the other, so that we can live and be comfortable. And so if we start turning off that inside voice, then it starts showing up less and less. So the first step for anyone who's like, I don't even know, if I am doing what is, aligned with me as a woman, or, what my views are on where I currently stand, would just be like, take a step back and be like, hey, what do I really enjoy? Like, what gives me energy? What fills me up? Maybe even go back to when you were a child. Like, what did you love doing? For me, I loved writing. I loved creating stories. And I totally lost that completely.
Mm-hmm. Same for me. And that is a practice that I continually go back to. It's something that I consistently have to give my space and permission to realize that not only does it evolve, but I'll also put myself in positions where I may forget it. So journaling, similar to you, Katie, is a way for me to pause, breathe, reflect, and give myself space to really think about, okay, is this working? And it's funny, a lot of those times where I've taken a step back and realized, oh, this isn't exactly in alignment with what I want, are those times when externally things are going really well. Like, my business is doing really well. I have great friendships. Like, everything on the outside seems right, but there's this little voice inside that's like, let's pause for a second and reconsider, reevaluate if this is really the direction that you want to go in. And it's those moments where I find, ooh, okay, let me pause, put a break on whatever I'm doing, and it's going to feel really uncomfortable, but start making that shift. That's what happened to me when I started my business. I was working for a startup that's doing really well now. And the first day I went into work, there was just this voice inside of me that said, oh, this isn't the right fit. And everything seemed right. Like the salary was good, there were benefits, but it just wasn't a good fit. So continually giving yourself permission to take that step to reflect and pause, even when things are seemingly going well, is also really important.
Oh my gosh, I can so relate because in my job as an accountant, I had that same feeling, but I was just waiting for, I guess, a light bulb to be in front of me to be like, hey, here are your next steps. And so I had those feelings, but I wouldn't pause or even like try on what life would be like if I did try something else. So I just kept going through the motions and waiting for someone or something to pop out in front of me and be like, hey, here's the good time to, do this pivot. And it never comes. So giving yourself that space, and then I would say like trying on different, like what different roles feel like, is so important.
Yes, yes. And I think to your initial question, Katie, because sometimes that leap to pivoting out of your career or even pivoting to a new role can seem really daunting. Sometimes it's those little tiny steps that we can take that will help open up that portal. So maybe it's taking a dance class that you've never taken before, or it's going to a Pilates class when you've never done Pilates, or it's realizing, oh, I always take the same route to work. How about I switch it up today? Like, find those little areas that don't seem as daunting and so scary to open yourself up to new possibilities and new ways of seeing the world. And then slowly you'll start to feel more comfortable with making those bigger changes.
Yes, I totally agree with that. It doesn't have to be some crazy big change. Just you're running away from your career.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, there's anything wrong too with saying, hey, this, life feels great right now. Like there's going to be highs and lows and pivots throughout life. But if you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, I'm doing great in life. I'm exactly where I need to be. And this feels great. You should enjoy that, because a lot of people don't feel that. And there's nothing wrong with feeling one way or another. It's just part of our journey and our stories.
You brought up a really good point. As accountants, we are trained to be structured, we're trained to be linear, which is great. We offer a lot to our clients with that type of mindset. However, you said earlier that mindset also made you wait for some big light bulb moment to happen in your life, and then suddenly a roadmap or some sort of step-by-step process to appear to tell you what to do next or how to make this pivot happen. How did you shift that mindset, or what was your process for realizing that, oh, maybe this isn't the way life works?
Yeah, so like I talked a little bit about before, I was just waiting. And I felt so out of alignment with what I was currently doing. And because it was a job that a lot of people would love to have, I was doing great at it. It was a steady income with benefits. And inside, I was just like, there's got to be something else for me. I don't feel good in this spot. But throughout my entire life, what I realized is I had been given a lot of structure to follow. So I grew up, I went to school, it was okay, time to go to college. And when I was in college, I did accounting and, it's go to the Big Four. So I went there, and even when I started on the first day, I was like, this isn't for me, but something else will come. And a lot of people also told me that. So I did voice this before, and they said, you're young, you'll figure it out. And then I realized I wasn't figuring anything out. I was still doing the same thing. And I got super sick. This was the turning point. I got super sick with undiagnosed pancreatitis, and I was in the hospital for 7 days, couldn't eat for 5. And it was like something happened during that. When I went back to work, I was changed. It was like there was this voice inside me that said, look, you can go to work every single day. You can seem to be healthy and everything. And that can all be taken away from you really fast and out of your control. So do you really want to live each day in a state like this when you don't know how long life is going to be. And while I didn't, come close to dying in that experience, it was so scaring and humbling to make me evaluate what I'm doing each day, and this safety net that was around me and what society, told me was good, and what like my friends and my family had said, you're good, it's fine to be in this spot. I was like, I don't want that anymore. And I realized that if I didn't, step out, that I could not gain any sort of clarity because that job was so demanding. And I'm someone who I go all in when I'm doing something. So even if I'm not, I wasn't 100% there at that job, it's like I'm going to be the best I can every single day. So I was just like very lucky and grateful that I had, savings to support myself to just walk away. And I said, I'm going to figure this out, but this is not right. And I'm not going to just follow what everyone says is good because this doesn't feel good.
Oh my goodness, that is incredible. And I'm curious about leading up to your stay in the hospital with pancreatitis, which is so scary. You said though, like something didn't feel right. Like, what does that feel like for someone that's thinking, okay, I think I feel the way Katie used to feel, but I'm not quite sure if that's the same feeling.
Yeah. So to me, whenever it didn't feel right, I would wake up in the morning and feel the same feeling. For me, I always feel it in my throat. It sounds funny. It's like very tight. And I was constantly like holding my breath all the time. Like at the end of the day, I noticed I was just taking big gasps of air. And I found myself listening to podcasts nonstop about entrepreneurs, and I would follow various people. There's a couple like YouTubers, and it sounds funny, but I followed over the past like 2 years, and I was like, darn, I started following them when they were at ground zero, didn't have a business, and then now look where they're at. And I would started to just like think, I'm like, every day is passing, and I just don't see myself being here, and I don't feel myself being here, and I find my mind wandering off all the time.
That is so helpful. Like those little things, they seem really insignificant because I can totally relate those times when I look back when I've been in meetings and my throat, like I literally had nothing to say. And clearly I have a lot to say all the time. But looking back and realizing, oh, that was a sign that that wasn't in alignment for me when I feel like I can't speak, or yes, when I'm holding my breath or breathing really shallow,
Yeah.
that's an indication that there's something else bigger at play to look at. That's really, really insightful.
We, Danetha, did some discussions before talking today, and I know both of us have found Teal Swan to be super inspirational and a guide in helping us awaken our feminine power. So I thought that we could share some information that she provided in one of her articles to help females really tap into their own divine feminine power. And one of those tips I thought was super interesting was to look at your, I guess, current perception of womanhood and what being a woman meant in your family. Because as the article discussed, basically, some people were raised in a family where the mom has a very traditional role. Like she cooks, she cleans, she takes care of the kids. And then some people grew up where the mom, it was almost like rebelling against the traditional female. And so they think or feel that they need to go against that traditional role of a female. So just even reflecting on, what you've grown up to experience as what it means to be a woman, what those traits are, I found to be super interesting and almost freeing to say, okay, here's like what I've been shown a female should be, but what do I really want it to be?
Oh my gosh. Yes, same here. And also for me, realizing that those things that sometimes I would rebel against the traditional feminine role. My mom was a combination of both. She was stay-at-home mom, but she also ran the household in terms of the finances. Like my dad was the breadwinner, but she was the one managing the money. So I saw a blend of the two. But I realized as I got into my career that I was overly compensating for rebelling against the traditional feminine role. So the woman that's at home, cleaning, cooking. And while that I think was helpful in the beginning of my career to help fuel my ambition to getting to where I am today. I've also realized that now in this season of my life of being recently engaged and being with my fiance for the last 8 years, that I really love cooking for him and well, I don't love cleaning. We have a housekeeper, but I love cooking, and I love like being that traditional, like, I don't know, softer woman, if that's the word I want to use.
Yeah.
Where I'm receiving love and allowing him to really take the reins in certain situations. So it's interesting, like realizing for me, giving myself permission to let myself ebb and flow between those two archetypes is my journey right now.
That's amazing. I love that. And did you take the quiz on what your feminine power is?
Yeah, so Katie and I, before we hopped on today, we're talking about one of my favorite resources on discovering your feminine power. It's a woman named Aisha Faines, and she has a site called Women Love Power. And there's a quiz on there to help you identify your feminine archetype. And I believe she has 13 archetypes. And mine is the boss.
Oh, mine too.
Is it? Oh my God, I love it.
That's funny.
That's awesome. Do you feel like you relate to it?
Yes. There was one thing I did not, though, feel like I related to. She talked about a challenge being to connect with others. And I don't, okay, yes and no to that. So people who I like vibe with, I feel like I connect to them so deeply and I feel all of their feelings. But on the flip side, sometimes it's hard for me to connect with people because it's like I just don't, I feel for them a little, like I feel for them, but at the same time, if they're just like complaining, or I guess I just am thinking like, okay, take action, take action, take action. Like, you know, sometimes I'm not going to have a pity party with you, I guess.
Totally. That's so interesting because I feel like I'm similar in that way. Like I can connect really deeply with people almost immediately. And however, at the same time, I'm incredibly private as well. And so while I have, I would say, a number of friends, there's also this part of me that has been hurt by friendships or relationships. And so I shelter that. And I'm finding that is maybe a disconnect, somewhat of a disconnect with people.
So do you find then people open up to you easily?
Yes.
Yeah.
I pause because sometimes it's like more than I'm possibly ready for. Do you find that for you too?
Oh, yes. All the time. Like, whoa, how did we get on this conversation? Like, I know your whole life story, and we were calling to talk about accounting firm and automating your practice management. So it's really funny.
You're their therapist as well as their automation provider.
Totally.
I feel it's interesting for accountants. I feel like a lot of us can relate to that people open up to us in ways that we weren't necessarily expecting because we're connecting with them in such a personal way around finances.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're viewed as being trusting.
Yes.
For sure.
Trusted advisors.
So we wanted to leave you all joining us today with a question. And that question is, what does feminine power mean to you? And we would love to hear all of your thoughts, comments, your experiences, whatever you feel comfortable sharing in the comments below. As always, you can connect with us both on social media. We've linked the handles in the description, and we're so excited again to have you on this journey with us.
Yay, thanks for tuning in.